Okay, everybody, welcome to Paranormal Addicts, Season 2, Episode 14. For some reason, we're having trouble connecting on Get Haunted. So, yep. So you can go over to find us on YouTube, or apparently we're on your page, Brian. So we'll start out like we always do. And we were.
Do you think it's not finding it because you were scheduled for 6 and it's not 6 yet?
No, because they're the ones that asked me to put it at 5. So, it might be. It might be. We might wait. Yeah, we do got about 9 minutes, so we might wait. Yeah, you may be right.
Because sometimes when you have a live thing scheduled, Facebook won't let you go live until that time. And I know that this was put out at 6 to go live at 6 p.m. So we might be like 9 minutes early before we pick up the video.
Yeah, I'm talking to Trevor right now. It says,
"Oh, we got somebody. All right. So Amy's the one who did all the artwork for the Get Haunted book. So since she's watching, it looks like she's watching from YouTube, not the Facebook page.
Yep. I got. So far, we have one viewer, and they are on the They're on YouTube. Yes.
Right. That's Amy. That's what I said. Yeah. So it looks like Facebook is not the Facebook. Yeah. It looks like it did not go to.
Yep. I'm talking to Trevor right now, so he'll get us fixed. I hope.
Oh, well, that's you're relying on Trevor.
Yeah. The thing is, lately, StreamYard's been a pain in the butt lately.
Well, StreamYard, the last show I did wouldn't let me stream to Facebook and Instagram, and usually it lets me do both, and last time it made me pick between the two. So I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, I don't either. Okay. We'll go ahead and get started. Maybe Trevor can get us on. Okay, so usually I'll start out with a couple of icebreaker questions, but they don't really pertain a whole lot to you, Brian, because you're new. You're just really getting into the paranormal thing. But usually my first two questions are, what's your favorite location you investigated, and what would you like to go?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So like you said, I'm new to this. I haven't even had my year anniversary of my first, investigation. Hold on, I'm getting like text messages. I wonder if people are trying to. Okay, never mind. I thought maybe someone was trying to talk about the link. Anyway, so I haven't done it that often, so I haven't gone to many places, right? So my pick is very slim.
Okay, we sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, Brian, but we're on Get Haunted now.
Oh, we are. All right. So I'm officially viral now.
All right. So yeah, you've only been in it for about a year now. So you've done what so far? You've done the Missouri State Penitentiary. Is that where the first book's about?
Yeah, so the first Missouri State Penitentiary was my very first investigation I ever did, in my life. So that's kind of what started off. And it hasn't even been a year anniversary yet. It was actually the end of May when I went on my first one. So, when we're talking about me being new, I mean, I haven't even hit the 1 year mark yet of getting into this, right? But
yeah, you barely get your cherry popped.
But here we are. We got we have a book ready to come out in June, and all these people tell me that they're my friends, and we'll see when Christmas comes how much they're my friends.
well, that's funny because I got like 2,000 friends on Facebook now, and most of them are my paranormal friends. So I'm still waiting on my Christmas cards too. So we'll see how it goes.
Right now, I want like Christmas cards of just like haunted places, and then and then I'll make like a collage out of it or something. But no, I haven't been to too many places, right? So obviously, Missouri State Penitentiary, I spent eight weeks there writing the book. But other than that, I've only done the McLean Mansion in Pennsylvania that was Get Haunted, and then I did the New Egypt Museum in New Jersey with Get Haunted, and then I did um, the Melbourne Manor in Iowa with Hannah. That Get Haunted had nothing to do with. And then I did the New York City Mid Orange with Get Haunted. So that's really it. That's it, right? Yeah. That's it. Like that's all of it. That's my whole, repertoire, which is really low. However, you got to take into account that I was at Missouri State Penitentiary for 8 weeks.
Right.
I kind of, got my time.
Yeah,
in.
Well, I'm going to do my best to make it up there for the big, the big release party thing.
Yeah,
and
everybody's gonna come June 21st. It's gonna be really, really fun. I mean, we've got people flying in from all over the country. But the cool thing about that, right, is it's a book release party, and it's also going to be an 8-hour overnight
right.
investigation. But because we're doing a mixture of the two, not only is the entire Get Haunted crew going to be there. I mean, Trevor, Kaylee, I believe Bill and Tanya are coming. Lisa, obviously Rob, Danny, Sarah, the Get Haunted are going to be there. But because it's a book release party, there's also going to be people who worked on the book, like from a book's perspective. So like Amy, who's my graphic designer, who did the front cover, all the artwork inside, like she's flying in from Texas for it. And the people that are in the book, the characters of the book, Hannah's coming down, Taylor's coming down, my sister Alicia, who's in the book, is flying out from Massachusetts. My Heath, who's in the book, is flying in from California. So it's just going to be this huge, like, melting pot of, people who worked on or had something to do with the book, and then people who actually know what they're talking about when it comes to ghost hunting. And then I guess we'll all put us together and I don't know, see what happens. We are going to have some surprises during the night, if MSP in the budget can get a stripper pole there, I might do some of my famous stripper moves. I'm not sure, 2 a.m. to Dancing Queen. That's always a possibility. But no, we are going to have a scavenger hunt. And I've already me and Amy have already worked out the pictures for it. And what it's going to be is it's going to be actual Polaroids, but blown up, of all the members of Get Haunted that are in the book and all the characters from the book. And we're going to hide these pictures throughout Missouri State Penitentiary. They're going to be either in different cells or, we're going to hide all of them. And the first person who takes a picture of all of them and shows me or shows somebody there is going to get a pretty cool prize. So, that'll be kind of fun. So people during their investigation can also kind of be keeping their eye out for, catching the next photo, the next Polaroid that's hidden somewhere. But yeah, so we're still selling tickets for that. We still have some tickets available. So if anybody wants to come to Missouri State Penitentiary for this book release party and this investigation, you can go to either Get Haunted's website under events. You can go to my website, which is justmyname.com. And from there's a link that brings you to buy tickets. Missouri State Penitentiary, their Facebook page has been started to send links out for it. But the prison boss, Sheila, she was, we had to cap the tickets, right? So there is a hard and fast, only 100 tickets available to go to this. And once they're sold out, they're sold out. And it's one of those things where if we sell out and someone didn't get a ticket who wanted to go and then they go buy it and it's not available, we can't get you in. There's a very strict rule of how many people they're allowing on the property that night. So, it's not like, well, I'm friends with you. Come on, put me on a guest list or something. There is no guest list, right? the only people who are on a guest list are the people who are working it. You know, if you're not working it, there's no guest list. So I just don't want people to wait and then go buy the ticket and then have it be sold out, because after that there's nothing we can do. They can't get you in.
Exactly. Yeah, you only got so many tickets, and we Rob's already got the T-shirt. Have you seen the T-shirt with the book cover on the back?
I was the first one to see the T-shirt. I gave him some, and if anybody who's watching this, like live or then watches it after it's uploaded, we're redesigning the T-shirt. We're doing a little bit of tweaks because the first kind of iteration of the T-shirt definitely needs a little bit of movement, but I think it looks good. I did give him a suggestion about something for the front design that we added, and it kind of ties in because there's going to be a back to it too. And I know not a lot of Get Haunted shirts have backs. A lot of it's just the front, but we've decided to do a wraparound. So we're working on how do we make the front coincide with the back and not make it look like just two completely separate images that don't make sense. So we're playing with that right now. So, and that will be exclusive to the book release. So that will be fun.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah, I made the comment that I definitely have to get one. And I plan on being there. The thing is, I mean, like, as you know, most of the viewers know, we still ain't gonna get haunted, but Trevor's gonna get us hooked up. Trevor is still working. He's a delivery driver for UPS, FedEx, one of those. And he said at his next stop, he's going to get us on. So that's the reason I keep playing with the things. I'm not ignoring you or the viewers. I'm just trying to get us connected. But
I'm really good at just talking until I'm told to stop. So if you need to go do your thing, I can just keep talking.
But anyway, no, I mean, we're still live on two places. I can, I like you said, I can upload. I can upload it later if I have to. So it's no big deal. With my podcast being Question Answer, it just usually flows better if it's live because we get questions from the peanut gallery, But anyway, what I was saying is, I've been part of Get Haunted now for 2 years, a little bit over 2 years, but I have yet to make an event because I live so far away from everybody. I live way down here in Western Kentucky.
But Kentucky, are you going to the Ditto House?
I am not, and this is why. There's a couple reasons why. First of all, I don't usually get really personal on my thing, but I'll go really personal right now. I have ran into a bit of bad luck lately, and it's caused a financial strain on me. My wife got in a wreck. It's been about 6 weeks ago, and totaled my estate and broke two wrists in her bone. So she hasn't got back to work. And then I decided to break my foot this week. So that's caused kind of a financial hardship on it. But with that being said, I was also double booked for that weekend. I really want to get to the Ditto House because I love the Ditto House. And because I love Ernie and Denise, I love the packs, But that also happens to be the weekend that they have the Smoky Mountain Terror, which, I mean, you may not know that because you're still new in this. The Smoky Mountain Terror is in its third year, and it's a huge event. It does horror and paranormal, and they got like 100 people celebrities coming in to sign autographs and everything, and then. The surprising thing is there's only 3 paranormal teams. The rest of them are like celebrity people. But there's only like 3 paranormal teams. Me, an outlaw, paranormal, and then another one. And I thought I was going to have to cancel on it. And thank you, Hannah. I thought I was going to have to cancel on that because obviously going all the way to Gatlinburg is actually in Kingston, Tennessee, outside of Gatlinburg. But that's like a 6-hour drive for me. So and then a hotel for 3 days, and then food. But I had somebody that wishes to remain anonymous take care of my hotel and some food money to make sure that I can still make it. Which that means a lot to me. That shows you the good of this field. Get haunted shows you the good of the field. We're still family. There's still parts of the field out there that's still family.
Right.
I've never honestly met Rob and Sarah. I've had them on my podcast. I've talked to them on face chat, but actually in person. But I consider them my family. What was funny is of all the people in Get Haunted, the only one that I know on a personal basis is Trevor.
Yeah. Well, I think everybody. I think that's the baseline, right? I think everybody knows Trevor, and then you go up from there. Then you start there, right? That's like
me and Trevor are both from Paducah, Kentucky.
Okay.
So he actually joined my team on an investigation that we ended up getting the cops called on us because somebody tried to say we were trespassing. We wasn't. This is a funny story here, Brian. I'm going to tell the story. I think this is the first time I've ever told this story on air.
Okay. So we're getting a lot of firsts here on this.
Yeah, we're getting an exclusive, and we are on Get Haunted now. So Trevor took care of us. So my team is Ken 10 Paranormal. That's my team. It stands for Kentucky, Tennessee Paranormal. Obviously we go to other places, but that's kind of where we're based out of. That's where we live. Western Kentucky, Northwest Tennessee. So one of the places that we used to investigate quite a bit is an abandoned church now. But it used to be the black school back during segregation. It used to be the black school in this little bitty community in Western Kentucky. I'm talking about, like KKK, fiddles playing type. This is my hometown area, so I can say that. So I'm talking about like Western Kentucky. Matter of fact, one of the only tourist attraction they got in this county is a Civil War battlefield. So that's how Western Kentucky. So anyway, it was the African American school that became an African American church, and then it closed down. Well, we investigated a couple of times, and we never really got much from the church, but we always got like crazy activity from the school area. So we decided to go back. And we asked Trevor to go with us. So we get there, and everything's going good, except for my SLS that I had only used for 2 investigations decided to break halfway through the investigation. So some lady decided to call the cops and say we were trespassing. Well, what's interesting, Brian? You don't know this, but most of my viewers do. I take my reputation and my team's reputation very seriously. Like I said, I've been doing this for 34 years. We actually carry $2 million worth of liability insurance, and we actually carry legal representation. So I take it very seriously. Also, whenever we go to an abandoned location, I check with the PVA, who happens to be a good friend of mine. We go to church together, so I check with him to make sure it's actually abandoned, because obviously we don't want to trespass. Right. So this lady. And she's an African American lady. She's out there yelling, screaming at my team members. And the team members that she was choosing to scream at was my son and my team lead son, who obviously are youngest members. So this grown lady is screaming at these 2 teenagers. Mm. And I come out there and she's like, I'm going to call the cops. I was like, well, that's fine. I was like, you do realize I'm really good friends with Jay, who's the chief of police of the town. I was like, and I have permission from the PVA. She's like, this is private property. I'm like, do what you got to do. So Jay came out there, and it ended up being the lady had apologized to me. Jay had apologized to me, and my lawyer actually wanted me to press charges against the lady because she was slandering us, but I didn't go that far. But yeah, it was an interesting first investigation to ever go with on Trevor. So
yeah, Trevor brings the fun. One of the top 3 craziest things that happened to me while I was at MSP writing happened with Trevor. It was just me and him in A Hall in Unit 4. I got to be careful saying A Hall because the joke is if you say it too fast, it sounds like something else. So I keep trying.
Right. It sounds like
but yeah, so no, Trevor. Yeah, Trevor's good people. I like Trevor. But no, I asked if you were going to be there because going to Kentucky because the end of this month, I'm flying in so I can be there for the Get Haunted weekend, because I'm going to spend that weekend. I'm going for 5 days, I think, 5 days. And that 5 days is for me to do research, outline, and observation to get ready to write book 2, because book 2 is taking place at the Ditto House, right?
I saw that.
Yeah, so the Pax, Ernie and Denise, I don't think they really understand what it means to invite me into their house. I got invited to fly down for the Get Haunted event and just be an observer, right? I'm not going to partake. I'm just there. I'm going to be there with my laptop. I'm there to take notes and ask questions, and then I'm going to build book 2 off of whatever happens that weekend. And then I'm flying in for that weekend, but when I go for the actual 2.5 weeks to write the book, I'm driving because I'm going to be there long enough where I want a car. I don't, they're being nice enough picking me up at the airport for the weekend. I can't rely on them to drive me around and
Right.
2.5 weeks. So when I actually go down to write the book, and I also want my car there. I also want my car there in case these ghost children they keep talking about actually do crawl into bed with me, because I'm getting in that car and I'm driving home. I don't care if it's 3 a.m. The first time I hear a giggling child and then the weight of the child in bed with me, which is what I hear happens there. I'm packing up. I'll even know them. I don't even tell them. They'll wake up in the morning and they'll be like, I'll write on like the dry erase board or something. Fuck this. Or something like that. So
what's interesting about the Ditto place, well, first of all, so everybody thinks just because they're in the Pax are in Kentucky that we're close. Kentucky is not a really small. It's kind of a big state if you long wise. So even though they're in Kentucky, they're like 5.5 hours from me.
Yeah,
now,
I'm from Massachusetts, where
Kentucky's like a little bitty
7 minutes, or something like that. You can see it. You look out your window, you can see the other side of Massachusetts. So, I'm not used to that. Like, I'm in the same state, but it's hours away.
So with that being said, to me, the Ditto place, even though I've not actually had the privilege of investigating it yet, I will. But I actually, to me, consider it the most haunted location in Kentucky.
Yeah, well, if you Google the Ditto House, the very first article that pops is an article titled "The 6 Reasons Why the Ditto House is the Most Haunted Building in Kentucky." Like, that's actually the title of the article, right? So when Denise, because I met Denise and Ernie at the Get Haunted Supernatural soiree on the Battleship in New Jersey, and when I was talking to them, and they told me the name of the house. And we started, Wade from Nesper actually was the one who got us talking. And when it came up for me to possibly go and stay at the Ditto House to write book 2, I then went and kind of Googled it a bit. I didn't know much about it. Remember, I'm new, right? I'm still new in all this. So, and that was the first article that popped up. And I was like, oh my God, what am I kind of agreeing to right now? Because MSP is scary. It has its moment, right? But the Ditto House absolutely terrifies me to my core. Like, I'm legitimately scared to go to this house. So, I've been rethinking my life choices over the past couple of
There's been several times in the 34 years I've investigated that I've questioned my life choices. The thing that's interesting is, I counted up how many investigations I've been on a couple weeks ago because I was a guest on I was a guest on a podcast, which was kind of different for me because I'm used to being on this side and I was on that side. But I was a guest, and so I added up my investigations, and I've been on 913 investigations. And my team is still one of the teams that does residential investigations. So we still go in and help people.
Right.
To me, that's why I do this. I tell people that, hi Kaylee, we are on Get Haunted now, guys. So all the Get Haunted people, welcome. You've missed about 25 minutes, but it's just been me and Brian yakking, so you haven't missed anything. So welcome.
Yeah, we talked a lot about the Ditto House and the Get Haunted weekend, which I'm going to rely on Kaylee to protect me if those stupid children start coming out from underneath the beds. Trust me. Like, I'm going to call her like 2 in the morning and be like, Kaylee, I think there's a little child in the room with me. And then, like, Brian, you're aware.
So there's been several times that I've questioned my life. But see, I was born with abilities. I call them gifts now. As a kid, I didn't call them gifts, but I've learned that they were gifts, and I view them as gifts from God. There's that. I don't know if controversy is the right word for it, but there's people who say that religion has no part in paranormal investigating, and then there's people who say that paranormal investigation is whatever. So, but to me, my gifts were given to me from God to use. So that's why I do what I do. Now, I didn't always view it that way. A 10-year-old me at 2 o'clock in the morning at my grandparents' house that was built in 1812 that had spirits come and visit me in the middle of my sleep, did not think it was a gift. But I've learned. But so anyway, in being from Kentucky, most people always assume that I would say Waverly Hills is the most haunted place in my best experience.
Yeah, because you started the show, and I know that like we're finally live on the Get Haunted page. So I know a lot of people like missed your opening question, but your opening question to me was like what have been like my favorite places, right? But because I have such a small amount of places I've been to, I can tell you the 3 times I've been the most scared, and so the 3 times I've been the most scared, remove MSP, right? So take Missouri State Penitentiary out of it, only because I was there for 3 weeks and I wrote the book there. So if we say except MSP, the 3 places I've been the most scared was the Melbourne Manor, the McClay Mansion, and Mid-Orange. Because 3 very specific things happened. One at the McClay Mansion, people who were there will have never seen a 5'4" white dude run up a flight of stairs so fast. Because I had a door that was open slam in my face after I taunted it. So that was terrifying. At the Melbourne Manor, there was screaming coming from another room down the hallway, a woman screaming that had been caught on audio earlier, like at another date, and was on YouTube, and we actually listened to that clip. So when it was happening, when I was there, it sounded just like what I heard on the YouTube clip. So hearing like a disembodied woman scream about 7 or 8 times was absolutely just like, I can still hear it in my head, and it still freaks me out. And then at Mid-Orange, we were all down in the basement, Rob, Danny, like me, Hannah, my sister Alicia, a whole bunch of people, and a shadow figure went running kind of through us because we were all in a circle, and me and Danny screamed at the same time, and it was so close that I felt like if I stuck my foot out, I would have tripped it. So that was a moment. So, and it was funny because right before that happened, Bill from Get Haunted made me a ghost bell. And right before we saw the shadow figure go running by us, the bell went off like 3 or 4 times. So I love when things all kind of, like fit together like that.
So yeah, I mean, the scariest I've ever been, and I don't really know that I would call it scary because I've seen a lot in between, kind of like you being a cop, me being a veteran, I was a combat medic, so I've seen a lot. So and I've also been on 900 investigations, but but the investigation that had my on alert was a private residential investigation. So I won't go into a whole lot of details about it, because that's I respect the residential investigations. We're there to help the family. We're not there to get likes for Facebook or any of that stuff. So, but it was a murder suicide, and the in-laws asked us to come check it out. And bottom line ended up being the father had decided to start worshiping, dabbling into devil worship, and he ended up going crazy and killing his kids, his wife, and himself. So that one was different. I won't say that I've ever witnessed demonic activity, but that would be the closest I've ever seen. And I still just say it was a malicious entity. I still won't say. And then other than that, as far as like public investigations, whatever you want to call them, we investigated this hotel. I hate calling it hotel. The name of it's the Anderson Hotel, but it's not a hotel. It's not like a Hilton or a Ramada or even a Days Inn. It's a transit hotel. You know what I'm saying? So it was actually shut down for 3 years because of supposedly how violently haunted it was. And when they reopened it, we were the second team to go investigate it. It's in Kentucky, way on the other side in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky, and they've closed it down again. Now they don't allow any investigations. But the first thing to understand about this location is they want this location to be that way. So their claim to fame, and it used to be the thing that they had on their stickers and stuff you could buy when you get there, was that their ghosts bite.
Their ghosts bite?
That's what it said. Jonathan, hand me that case. So I wanted to call bullshit on that. Excuse my language. Because at that point, I had been doing this for 32 years. But I've seen a lot of things. I've been scratched. I've been pushed. I've had things thrown at me. But see, can you see it?
Oh, yeah.
But for an entity to actually bite you, that takes a lot of energy. So that was the first thing that made me want to go do it. And then, I watched a couple of the episodes, the TV episodes, where people went there and they experienced. So anyway, so we get there, and, we do the walkthrough like you do at every place you go to. And like I said, it's important to understand that this place wants to be violently haunted, and this is why I say that. So there's 4 verified suicides, murders, deaths there. And when I say verified, like we discussed earlier, I take my team's reputation seriously. So when I say verified, I mean I verified it with the coroner report, the newspaper, and the police report. So when I say verified, I mean verified. Of these 5, there's 5. Of these 5 verified deaths in the hotel, they still have 3 bloodstained mattresses for the suicides. Oof. They still have a bloodstained bathtub from another suicide. And then the 5th one, and he ended up being the spirit that was the most intriguing. I say that nicely because he was an asshole. But he was one that he lived there. And he was alcoholic, and he drank himself to the point that he hung himself in the closet in his room. And all of his liquor bottles are still there, and they encourage you to bring a liquor bottle to give to him. We didn't do that because to me, that's you don't do that. You respect the spirits. You don't. So and then so we do this tour, and in the 3 years between being closed down to the public and reopening, they decided to operate as a haunted attraction, a haunted house, and which that's all fine and good. I understand you got to make money to keep these places open. Well, they decided it'd be cool if they painted a voodoo symbol in the entryway.
Mm. Yeah, so they were making like a mockery of it almost, right? They were turning it into a sideshow.
Yeah. So they picked a voodoo symbol that they found that looked cool, and it did look cool. But this is one of those things, kind of like Ouija boards, anything else. None of that stuff is bad if you use it properly. Mm-hmm. they didn't research it, and they painted this big. I mean, it's as big as the wall in the entryway, and the symbol that they decided to use opens the gates of hell. So,
sounds like a book waiting to happen.
yeah. So anyway, so after we do the little tour, my team will usually divide up, and we decided to do the first room together. The first room is the room with the bathtub that I mentioned earlier, where the lady committed suicide. Where the lady that committed suicide there was a 33, 34-year-old mother, and she checked into the hotel especially to commit suicide. Her husband and her kids had just got killed in an accident, and that was her reaction to it. So, like I said, the blood stain's still in the bathtub. Well, I go in there, and like I mentioned, we investigate with respect. So we go in there, and I ask the spirit if I can get in the bathtub, and the response I get is yes or no. I'm like, well, I can't do both. So I get in there, and we have a good EVP session for a while. Well, then finally we get out. Well, my thing is, as long as I've been doing this, and the fact that I travel 5 hours, I don't get out the first time you tell me to. My rule's always been the third time I'm told to get out, I'll leave that room. Well, we go on for a while. Eventually, we get to the third get out, and so I get ready to get out. And like I said, it's an old-fashioned bathtub with the coral feet. So I'm trying to get out, and I'm not a small guy, as we see. So I'm, my team helps me out, and as I'm getting out, I feel what feels like a really deep Indian burn on my calf. Like your bully used to give you in middle school. A really deep one, and that's what it felt like. And when we got to the our makeshift base, when we had light, we looked at my leg, and I have what looks like a double bite mark on my leg.
Wow.
I actually got it tattooed on my leg because I wanted to always have it. You want to see it? I'll show you. Can you see it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's the first thing that happens, and it only picks up from there. So the next thing that happens is all of our equipment stops working. You hear that all the time, battery. So, and we had a brand new camera, and it went dead. Everything stopped working. So then we divide up, and the girls go into what's probably the second most famous, infamous, whatever term you want to use, room. And this room, most people call it the suicide room. And the history of that room is this 18, 19-year-old girl, an 18, 19-year-old girl. This 18, 19-year-old girl came all the way from Michigan to this little town in Kentucky. Nobody knows why she came. Nobody really knows anything. The only thing they know is she ended up committing suicide on that bed. She slits her wrist, and the blood stain's still on the bed. They still have they kept the mattress. Well, the other thing that's known is that while she was there, for some reason with crayon, we don't know why crayon, she drew pictures of like scenery and wrote Bible verses underneath it, and she and hung them over the room, and all those pictures are still there.
Oh.
And the other thing that we know is she does not like talking to guys, because me and Dennis tried to talk to her first, and she didn't want to talk to us. So from what we could gather from what little bit there is in the police report and everything, is apparently she had her heart broke in Michigan, and that's why she came. So anyway, so the girls got all kinds of interaction, nothing bad. Like they would play like Amazing Grace, and the girl would interact and stuff. So me and Dennis, we went to what's officially known as the Blue Room. And the Blue Room is the one where the guy lived at, with the liquor bottles.
Yeah. Well,
so I tell people all the time that while demonic spirits are rare, you have malicious spirits all the time. And a malicious spirit is just somebody that was an asshole when they were alive. They're going to be an asshole when they're dead. So this guy, sorry, I call it like I see it. So this guy, like I said, he lived there, and he was an alcoholic. Well, he also ran prostitutes in and out. So, like I said, he was just so. So the first thing that happens is me being me. I decided to get in the closet with the guy hung himself. Well, as soon as I got in the closet, all my energy was drained. I hit the ground. Dennis had to pull me out of the closet. So then we did all the thing, and we got some stuff. Nothing bad. I mean, he like knocked off a bottle, and that kind of stuff. Well, he pushed Dennis, but something told me that he did not like females. So I radioed back to the females because we rotate every 45 minutes. We investigate for 45 minutes, then we take a 15-minute break. Drink an energy drink, Gatorade, whatever. Smoke a cigarette if you have to, hit your vape, whatever, and then we go back to the investigation. So I radioed back to him. I was like, I know you guys are going to come up here, but I'm like, I was like, and I'm not trying to talk you out of it, but this spirit does not like females. I'm like, as the team lead, I have to warn you, So anyway, we rotate, and my niece is on my team, and at that time my niece was 19, so she decides to use the prostitute angle. To get the spirit talking, and I still have this EVP. It's one of the best most clear EVPs I ever captured. And Haley walks up there and she's like, "I'm 19 and cute. Can I get a job?" And the response was $50 and free room.
On the EVP.
Yeah, the EVP, and it was that clear: $50 and free room. So from there, it just escalated. So the spirit was touching Jill's leg, and then the spirit ended up grabbing Tiffany in her female region. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I ended the investigation because at that point, it became a safety issue. Right. My team safety, even though we traveled 5 hours, my team safety is more important than the investigation.
And that was after you had gotten bit, right? You got bit before that?
Yeah. No, that was after. Me getting bit was the first thing that happened. But that was me. I think that was the difference. That happened to me, so it didn't concern me as much. When it happened to my team, it concerned me more.
Right. Especially a family member, right? Your niece is involved, stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yep. So those are the two scariest places I've ever been. So let's talk a little bit about. So, what drew you to the paranormal? Why did you decide to write about the paranormal? Why get haunted? Just tell us a little bit about how that happened.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of who I am as a person, like growing up, and things that I'm into, and then there's some serendipity here. There's a lot of serendipity here. I look back on the things that needed to happen in my life in order to get me to be at the Missouri State Penitentiary on June 1st, which was the night that Get Haunted was hosting an event with Nesper, where Hannah and her friend had come, where I sat in A Hall, where Hannah had sat in A Hall, how Rob decided to split us up. But there's so many things. If I wrote them down on a piece of paper, shouldn't have happened. Like for me to even be talking to you, right? First thing is horror is my favorite genre, and I wanted to be an author since I was about 7th grade. I started writing short stories in 7th grade, and Stephen King is, and always will be my favorite author. And my favorite genre of horror movies are probably tied is movies of possession, but also haunted house movies. So movies like Insidious and stuff like that, right? My two favorite horror movies in the history of horror movies is The Exorcist and Insidious. So that just kind of shows you where I fall with horror movies. But as an author, I've been published since 2007, so coming up on 18 years, and at the time I had 10 published novels, and I had only written one horror novel. So 9 of my novels were not horror, even though horror is my favorite genre, and I was starting to get the itch to write another horror novel. I just didn't know what it was going to be, right? I didn't want to make it up. I do have a supernatural crime noir trilogy that involves a witch from Salem, Massachusetts, but I don't really consider those horror novels because it's more supernatural crime driven. Just because there's a witch in it doesn't mean that it's always horror, right? So, um, and I had to go out to Missouri for training for my job, and I did a overnight ghost hunt at MSP, and I'd never done one before, and I loved it so much that as soon as I went back to where I was staying, I jumped on Missouri State Penitentiary's website and saw that they had the very next weekend was the Get Haunted Nesper event. So I had been there the weekend before as my very first one ever. Never thought that I would do another one after that. I thought this was kind of those like skydiving things, right? Where you like skydive and then you check it off your like bucket list, and you're like, well, I did that, right? I honestly truly thought like, I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go do an overnight and check that off my bucket list. And I could not believe how into it I was. So I went back and met Get Haunted, and it was that night where I think the universe was like, yeah, you're supposed to be here tonight, and you're supposed to be meeting these people. Oh, and by the way, here's a plot for a horror novel. And that
So yeah, the thing that's interesting is you talk about being a horror fan to begin with, and then that's the thing I like about the Smoky Mountain Trail. Like I said, I was going through. It combines the two, and then the other big one that we have here in Kentucky, which is Scarefest, which is in Lexington. And obviously with the name Scarefest, it has more of the horror, but then like Dan Riviere is going to be there. He's going to take Annabelle. They have all kinds of big people. So there's a connection there. And I was a huge horror fan growing up. The first movie I can honestly remember seeing was at the drive-in. My stepdad took me to see was the original Halloween. John Carpenter, the classic, and the second movie to that was "Can I Do You Too? I Need Glasses." So that's not as much of a classic as Halloween was, but. I don't know why I remember that movie. I think it's because it was a name, and I was like 6. But yeah, so I've always been a horror movie fan, and then and then like you said, to me, I don't really think you can meet like Rob and Sarah and them and not be fans of them, or consider them part of your group. They're just good people. So I'm actually working on my first ever book, Brian, and it's more of a biography, kind of. It's kind of a how to be a paranormal investigator type book. But everybody's wrote one of those. You even got the Idiot's Guide to Paranormal, the Idiot's Guide to Ghost Hunting. I'm sorry,
right,
Idiot's Guide to Ghost Hunting.
Right.
But mine's going to be a little bit different because I'm going to put my personality in it, which everybody tells me I have a good personality. I guess I do. I carry the podcast. This year I'm by myself. Last year I technically had a co-host, but I was really by myself. And my introduction to my book is being written by Aaron G. Thompson. From 28 Days Haunted, et cetera, and then it's going to be. My personality is going to be there. It's going to be about.
Yeah, you gotta put your personality in, or it just sounds like you're reading like a technical journal.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, and then the second half of the book is going to be like places I've been, but I'm going to write them. I'm going to write it the way I'm writing it is like they're going to the investigation with me.
Yeah.
So they get to determine themselves if there's activity. Like if I got a 15 on the EMF meter, I'll put this is what happened, and I got a 15. So they can actually like experience it.
I think where you'll benefit is because you've done 900 and something investigations, and you've been doing it for over 3 decades. I think
that makes me feel old, Brian.
Yeah.
When you put it like that, I feel old. 3 decades.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right. So 3. Let's see. How do we put this? I don't know. I know. I was gonna do it a different way, but I guess I can't. Less than 3 dozen of eggs. I don't know. But I think because you have so much experience that you can bring to the table, that will come off, and that will shine more than somebody who's just casually does it and wants to write a book about it. So I think when you have that experience, you won't even know you're doing it, but it will come out in your stories. Because you can't fake experience. It's one of the things you can't fake. You know, you can fake a resume, you can fake accolades, you can fake awards, but you can't fake experience, because when you're put up to do the thing you claim you can do, and then you can't do it. Everybody knows that the experience isn't there. And I think when people talk who have experience in certain subjects, I think people like innately can feel that, right? I get asked to speak at writers' conferences all over the country, and in fact, just yesterday I was asked to speak at another one this October, and I do a hour to an hour and a half block on how to market how to market your book. How do you market? And I have so much experience with marketing that when I start to talk, I think people just know when you know what you're talking about, right? People can feel, and they go, "Oh, this person knows what they're talking about," right? And it has nothing to do with confidence. It has nothing to do with how many stories do you tell. It has nothing to do with throwing numbers and figures out there. People who have experience with certain things just have a different way of speaking about it, and um, you know, like when you talk to like the Nesper guys, like when you talk to Wade. You sit down with Wade, and just 15 minutes in, you already know this guy's got so much in his brain that you're not even seeing. You're only seeing the tip of the iceberg of what that guy knows. And, so there's certain people that just project that.
See, and I agree with that. The reason I agree with that is because, like I mentioned, I was a guest on a podcast a couple weeks ago, and they were telling me, when they were asking me to be on it, I definitely don't consider myself a para-celebrity. That's my word, para-celebrity. I don't want to be a celebrity. I'm a paranormal investigator. That's what I want to be. I understand I got the podcast, and I understand that I've been averaging 700 something views a week lately. That's not why I do it. I do it because I want to promote the field. I want to educate. But anyway, my point is, the podcast that I was on, the host was telling me, I was like, I don't know if I'd be a very good guest. I was like, I'm a nobody. He's like, don't say that. He's like, you're not a nobody. He's like, your podcast, and you were one of the first people I ever listened to when I started listening to podcasts. He's like, you got so much experience. He's like, I guess you don't realize that. And that's the same thing like I was talking about the Smoky Mountain Terror. I got an invite there because of a friend. And so I was talking to another friend of mine who he's definitely is a para-celebrity. He's had a show for a while, and I'm not going to mention his name. He's a good friend of mine. But I was talking to him, and I was like, tell him I was going to the Smoky Mountain Terror. He's like, they told us we wasn't big enough. And I was like, well, if you're not big enough, I'm definitely not big enough. Because, everybody shows to me the same thing you just said, whether I realize it or not. My experience and my passion comes out when
it shines through when you talk, when you're not even trying, right? And I think people listen and gravitate towards those people. And that's why when Rob gets in front of 50 people at an event, he commands the room without trying, right? Because there's just a level of confidence. Now, not cockiness, because that's different, but I think there's a level of confidence, and people say, "Oh, this person knows what they're talking about." Like he understands the topic, or she understands the topic, and I think that's very important if you're going to write a nonfiction book or a how-to book, because people will read right through you if you're if people just, oh, you know what, I'm really into I don't know whatever topic, and then they try to write a book about it, and it's people can see through that real fast.
Yeah, my working title right now, I've had some people who like it and some people who don't, and I've had some people tell me it's too long. But my working title right now is "Don't buy generic batteries," and it's probably not a demon. A member was a paranormal investigator.
Don't buy generic batteries. Yeah.
You like it? Don't like it? What do you think?
That's funny. I like that. Yeah.
I've had some people tell me it's too long. It would cost me too much money to put it on the title page.
No, I think that should be the title. I know if Amy is still in our chat, she's she's the graphic designer guru. I know, Amy. Do you think that would be too long to be on the book cover? I don't see if she'll answer or not. But there's always ways you can play with the font and the size and stuff, so you can get it all there.
But yeah, that's my working title.
Look, she answered. See?
She said she'd get it on the cover.
Yeah.
All right. Well, seriously.
But here's the thing, like if you come to MSP, if you come to the book release party, which we spent a bit of time talking about in the beginning of the show, if you come, you'll meet Amy because she's going, and then you can talk to her about the front cover of your book there, and walk away with a graphic designer.
That's what I was about to say. Amy, be sure to send me a friend request, because really, at my point right now, I was planning on like self-publishing and everything, and I don't really know if that's the best thing to go. But that's just because I consider myself a nobody. That's kind of where I'm at right now with it. But yeah.
There's nothing wrong with self-publishing as long as you do it right. Self-publishing gets a bad rap nowadays because the author didn't do it right, and they put out a subpar product. So when people buy a self-published novel that either wasn't edited professionally or doesn't have a professional cover, they assume that all self-published novels must be the same way, right? So that's an uphill battle that a lot of self-published authors have, is you're like salmon fighting against all the other self-published novels that are crap. But if yours is good, you got to get people to know who may have had a bad experience with someone else's self-published book that yours isn't crap. And that's a hurdle. But once word of mouth gets out there, and if you do the marketing correctly, any self-published novel can sell just as much, if not more, than a traditionally published novel nowadays.
Well, I plan on, I'm about 8 chapters into the book.
8 or 80?
8.
Okay. Woo, I thought you said 80. I was like, what is this?
No. I don't think anybody want to read me that long. I don't think anybody wants to listen to me that long or read me. But anyway, so my goal is, once I do get it published, self-published, however I get it published, I figure I'll start doing the Paracon circuit again.
Yeah, yep.
I used to do that. I mean,
yes,
you don't know that, Brian, but like other people do, like Courtney, the Get Hunted people know. So I lost 3 years of paranormal investigating because I had brain and spine surgery. So I for 3 years, I couldn't really do anything. I had to learn to walk and everything again, and we'll get to your question in just a minute, Damien. So yeah, I used to speak at Paracons quite a bit before since I've been back. I do the podcast, and really I'll give Sarah a big shout out for that, and Rob. So I had pretty well lost my confidence and everything when I came back into the field. I figured I was back to being a nobody. Not that I consider myself somebody. We know that already. But I figured, I was going to have to, start from ground zero. Nobody's going to remember who I was or care. And so Sarah started talking to me about being that part of the Get Haunted podcast program, and that's what gave me my voice back and helped me get my confidence back. And so I'm good. I'm good with the podcast. I'm good at being behind the camera on the thing. Even though I do tell people most of the time I do have a radio face, so it'd be better if there was no screen. But we can't do anything about that. You have to look at me. But I think I have a very low self-esteem about myself. But anyway, moving on. So I haven't really got to the point where I doing the Paracons again yet, because after the brain surgery, I developed a stutter sometimes. Most people don't notice it, but I do, so it bothers me. Right. And with that being said, I am doing, besides the Smoky Mountain Terror, I am doing 2 other Paracons within the next 2 months. So I'm getting back out there. The funny story with that is I was supposed to do one last year, but it ended up getting canceled. But I told a good friend of mine, who's also an author, J.B. Coates, I was telling her that I was finally getting back to doing speaking at a Paracon. If I don't cancel it, and she told me if I cancel it, she's going to kick my ass. So,
you can't cancel.
So, and she's a black woman. You don't mess with those. So I'm a little bit scared. So, but yeah. So anyway, but what's funny is even though I'm just now getting back to speaking at Paracons, I do plan one. This is actually my 3rd year planning one. So yeah. But I don't speak at it either. I may introduce the speakers, but that's about, and I do participate on the question and answer panel. With the people, I do that. Last year, I even got out of introducing the speakers because Trevor did it for me.
I think that's the best idea. I love Trevor, but I give Trevor a lot of crap because I like him so much. So it's easy to tease him.
So, like I said, me and Trevor, I call Trevor my little brother because he's a lot younger than me, and we're both. But so last year, the name of my event was the West Kentucky Paranormal Expo. I mean, last year it was the Haunted Graves Paracon. Well, this year I changed the name to the West Kentucky Paranormal Expo. I did that for 2 reasons. One reason was here in where I live, it's Graves County. And Graves County has adopted Halloween as their thing. So they have a special event every weekend in October. Well, Haunted Graves is the name of the whole month long of activities. Well, the people down here in Western Kentucky wasn't smart enough. They wasn't intelligent enough to separate the fact that the West Kentucky the Haunted Graves Paracon was an event on its own and wasn't the whole month with events. Right. So that's one reason why I changed it. And the other reason was I wanted to, Paracons have got a lot of drama lately, a lot of negative publicity. So I wanted mine to focus on the community and positively. So I changed it to Paranormal Expo. But anyway, so last year my headline speaker was Aaron G. Thompson and Gavin and Paula Kelly, and I had some other people. Well, Aaron G. Thompson, he came from all the way. He lives in Indiana, almost to Chicago. So it was a good drive for him. Well, he came down the night before, and instead of paying for him a hotel room, I put him up in my friend's haunted B&B. And so he was coming to Paducah to meet us to eat. And so I was at the expo that everybody set up. Well, Trevor was meeting him. So Trevor went ahead and met Aaron because they had already met at a Get Hunted event.
We're about to leave.
So the place closed at like 8 o'clock. Well, I was supposed to be done with sit up by 7 o'clock. Well, it kept dragging on. 8 o'clock, people were still setting up. So I'm messaging you. I'm going back and forth with them. I was like, I'll be there. Well, when I get there, obviously the place has already been closed for like 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Well, the thing that was cool was the location not only let me go ahead and go in, they went ahead and let me order food and everything. So I spent that whole Friday night hanging out with Trevor and Aaron G and his, at that time, fiance. They're married now, but his fiance. So yeah. So there's still some good people there. But
yeah.
Let me ask you this question. This is a question I ask everybody. In your take on it will be a little bit more valuable, I think, because
I don't know about that.
well, because you're still kind of an outsider. You know what I'm saying? So you're still kind of looking in, and you can talk.
Yeah, no, I'm an outsider. I'm definitely You guys, your network is the Get Haunted network is definitely. I don't ever want to ever give the impression that because I wrote this book and because I've done some investigations and that I've become friends with you guys that I would ever consider myself equal to any of you guys in the paranormal field. I'm still down here looking up.
So I'm down there with you. And, I know I'm not, but to me I am. I think I really need to get a better. I think I really need to look at myself more positively, and that's an honest thing. I don't look at myself very positive, but anyway, that's enough about me.
So you have so much to offer with your experience and your years, and you definitely need to understand your worth.
So the question I always ask everybody, as you know, unfortunately, you know this firsthand. As you know, lately, the paranormal field has had a lot of drama.
What? No.
No. So my question is, why do you think there's so much drama, and what do you think we need to do to eliminate the drama?
Okay. I felt like I was thrown in the middle of the deep end of a pool when it came to the drama, right? So I also didn't understand who was who, what was what, who was on what side. I felt like I had just entered West Side Story, and the Sharks and the Jets were finally snapping and ready to fight, and I was like, I don't know what's going on. I didn't get briefed at all on on the situation. However, from an outsider standpoint, right? So if you're asking from an outsider standpoint what I think is going on, I think it is so easy nowadays for anybody to get involved in any community and try to make and become a content creator, right? Anything at all. So you take now, let's go back 30 years, 20 years, right? We had TV shows like Taps. We had these people that I'm sure most of the paranormal investigative community maybe not looked up to them, but thought to themselves, oh my God, wouldn't it be amazing if I could be on TV, or if I could make these episodes that other people watch. When we didn't have YouTube, and we didn't have Facebook, and we didn't have social media, right? There was no real outlet for all of these amazing investigators to give something to the audience. And that goes for everything, right? Like, that's not just paranormal, it's everything. So we live in an age now where you can, right? Like, if I wanted to wake up tomorrow and be like, you know what? Screw it, guys. I'm going to go do my own paranormal show. Nobody can stop me, right? So I think that breeds a lot of jealousy. And I think people feel like they own a corner of it, right? Well, and then you're treading on me. You've invaded my turf, right? But there is no turf. There's no turf. That's a construct, right? That's an arbitrary idea in cyberspace, right? So I think people create drama because everyone wants a piece of a pie. But the pie is infinite. But people think the pie is not infinite, right? So they need to create drama. Well, I want a piece of the pie. But what pie? It's the internet. Have your own channel. Nobody's stepping on your toes. There's no reason. So I think people get threatened because they don't want to share. They don't want to play nice in the playground because they think that there's only so many slices, right? This isn't Fort Knox. It's not like once the gold is all been used, you can't print more money, right? Everybody can work. And if and it's funny, being in the author community, what's amazing about the author community is it's probably one of the least competitive communities I know. We have the least amount of drama when it comes to the author level. We all know that if one of us succeeds, we're all going to succeed because we're all going to suggest each other to other readers. I can't think of book festivals and conventions I've done where somebody will go up to somebody who only writes like dark fantasy romance and asks them, "Oh, well, do you have any horror novels?" And they'll say, "No, I don't."
Close the door.
Brian across the aisle, he likes horror. Or somebody will ask me for a certain genre, and maybe I don't write that genre, and I send them to their table. There's no concrete pieces of pie to just put that in. So I think people who create the drama in any sort of market at all are people that feel that they have some sort of ownership. They don't want to share the playground, but they don't realize that the playground is infinite. The playground's infinite. Everybody can play in this playground. And if more people come and want to play in the playground, you're not taking up space. You're not taking one square piece of sand away from me. And so, I think that might be the cause of it, and I think it goes back to the fact that 20, 30 years ago, we only had one or two successful paranormal investigative teams because everyone knows TAPS, right? Everybody knows. So, but we live in an age now where if anybody can do it, there's this kind of panic feel like, oh, well, I want the bigger piece of the pie, and if everyone just realized that we can all play in the sandbox, everybody would.
Exactly. It's a big sandbox. It's a beach. It is a beach. It's not even a sandbox. So yeah, I agree. I pretty much agree. I think Sarah put it best when her and Rob was on my show. For some reason, people think they have their spot. They're being knocked off their spot. I don't really see how people ever.
Well, it's not the Olympics.
Exactly.
Everybody's getting medals, right?
Right.
Trophies at the end of the year. Like, oh, you did 15 more investigators than these people, so here's you. Like, there's no Super Bowl in the paranormal, right? Like, oh, I'm coming into next year the number 3 seed. Like that.
We don't have competitions, but yeah. So I kind of look at it exactly the opposite. See, I want to help the new generation. I take pride in training them because I want to make sure they do it the right way. My team, Ken 10 Paranormal, we're a large team. We have 15 members on our team, and but you can't just come up to me and say, "Hey, I want to be part of your paranormal team." It doesn't work that way. Like I said, I take pride in my name and my reputation and everything.
Well, so brand, right? So we love the term brand in the author world because you want to build your brand.
Oh yeah, they don't get turned away, but there's a process. So if they come up to me and say, "Hey, I want to join," I'm like, "Okay, there's a process." So the first process is basically an interview. They just talk to me, and if I think that they're fit and I think that they really want to be, then they move into the next step. Which the next step is they'll come to a team meeting. We have monthly team meetings. That's how serious I take this. We have monthly team meetings. So they'll come to the team meeting, and then we'll do an orientation. And during this orientation, I actually have a typed up piece of paper that we go over, and it explains, that we don't provoke. We're not like you see on TV. That it explains that if it's an 8-hour investigation, you probably have 16 hours of recordings that you have to listen to. So it explains everything. And if they agree to that, then they go into training. And then the training depends on them. They may be out training in 1 or 2 investigations, or they may still be in training for a year. It just depends. So, but that's me. I enjoy teaching everybody. So people ask me all the time, what is the biggest difference now and 34 years ago? And to me, the biggest difference is now everybody's worried about being a celebrity, right? Or back when I got into it, everybody was worried about making the field better and helping each other.
Right.
And now, the thing is, I've coined the phrase para-celebrity. That's my phrase, paracelebrity. And we have a lot of paracelebrities out there, and I don't really. They can do their thing. They don't really bother me until they start making it harder for the real investigators.
Right.
There's a location in Tennessee. It's a popular and well-known location. It's a hospital, an abandoned hospital. They actually run two of them in there. One's the Old South Pittsburgh Hospital, and one's the Harriman Hospital. Well, thanks to these two paracelebrities, Z and C. I won't say their actual name, but Z and C. That should tell you who they are. Now, when you go there, you cannot release any of your video evidence until you send it to the location first.
Mm-hmm.
And they tell you that. They tell you while you're signing this 2-page waiver that Z and C is the reason you have to do that.
Mm.
So that's when I have a problem with it.
Right.
And then there's other locations, including Ernie and Denise's, where obviously you can't say anything's demonic because of these same people. Because for some reason, everybody thinks if you say demon, you automatically get more likes. I'm going to say demon twice so I can become the most popular podcast in the world. Demon,
the D
demon.
word, right? The D word.
Did it work? But so the thing is me and Damien, our good friend Damien here, we were talking about this particular people, and I made the statement. To me, they're the boy band of the paranormal world.
Boy band, the NSYNC.
Yeah, well, I would like to have the money, but the thing is, people have to realize they're not real. That's the thing. And now they bought a school and tripled the price to investigate the school. And so that's what. But Damien corrected me. Damien said, no, they're not. They're not. They're not the boy band of the paranormal world. They're the Spice Girls of the paranormal world. They do have the blonde hair though, so it could work. But anyway, so enough about that. So and that's the thing. I got a good friend, and I'm going to mention his name this time. I mentioned him earlier. So I have this good friend, Gavin Kelly. He's a known name. He's a relatively big name in the paranormal field. He's got his shows and everything. He's actually written a book on how the paracelebrity has ruined the field. Because he said, if you get into this just to make money, you're getting into it for the wrong reason.
Oh,
I guarantee you, I'm not making money. I probably lost $3,000 last year. I agree with you. And So let's get back to Damien's question here. Let's see. He said, before you started writing your novel,
my novel, yeah.
Were you a novice in the paranormal field? But now have you became accustomed to our language and equipment? Has it opened up your senses you didn't have before writing, or experience you wouldn't have thought twice before being paranormal?
Right. So I love telling the story. I wouldn't even say that I was a novice. I was pre-novice, right? I was nothing. Nothing. Even novice is giving me credit. When we talk about the equipment, my entire education or knowledge about any equipment came from the movies, literally Hollywood or TV shows. So MSP, the staff there were so patient with me. God love them. I look back on those first that first three weeks or so that I was there writing the book, and I didn't realize how patient they were being with me, because I didn't know what things were called. I didn't know proper names of things. I was saying REM pod incorrectly for about 6 weeks until Lisa corrected. So that just goes to show you how little I knew about the gear and the equipment, right? I was calling it a REN pod, like REN, the whole time. Conversation, and nobody was correcting me. And finally, Lisa saw it, me write it in the book, and she's like, you're spelling it wrong, right? I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, right? So, K2 meter, we did the thing where I pointed at the ground because I thought it was like a remote control. Didn't know you're supposed to hold it up like this. You silly thing, right? what's amazing is how much I've learned in the last year about the gear, right? And I've bought in some of my own. If you went back a year ago today, so that means it's still before the first time I went to MSP. We're still like 2 weeks shy of my first time there. If you went back a year ago today, May, whatever, 9th of 2024, and told me that in my closet behind me, I would have a backpack full of about, I don't know, $500 worth of ghost hunting gear, I would be like, what happens in my life where that's in my closet? Right. But I got to learn the equipment really, really well at MSP because I was there for 8 weeks. Right. And the staff was so patient and so nice and showed me how to use all of it, the REM pods, the K2 meters, all the ghost tube apps, the tracer strip, the tracer light, the one, the purple, that's like my favorite. That's probably my favorite thing to use. And that's something that they have 2 of them at MSP. And, this is all stuff I never knew existed. I didn't know it was, these things were, in circulation. So I learned by doing, sorry, I just like, I like inhaled a hiccup. I didn't even know you could do that. But instead of like learning YouTube, like watching YouTube videos about how all the stuff worked, I had people putting it in my hands and saying, this is how it works. Now you, right? And the night that the Get Haunted night was great because I had never been part of an Estes method session before. And I did my first one with Trevor in the gas chamber. And like, I didn't even know what that was. Like, I didn't even know the name, that there was a name for it. I had to Google what people were saying because I didn't even know the words they were saying. And I'm not going to say that I know everything about it because I don't think anybody really does, but I still don't really know a lot about it. But I know enough where I can have an intelligent conversation with somebody about it. And so I think that's what's happened to me, where I've learned those basic terms, the basic functions of how things work. In my book, to write the novel, it's not tech heavy. Right? It's not a Star Trek novel. I don't have to get into the equipment and why it does what it does, or I don't have to talk about how it works because it's not an owner's manual to a REM pod. It's a horror novel about a ghost hunt gone wrong, right? So it was kind of fun because my characters in the book don't really know how these things work. So me as the author not really knowing how these things work, I think that came out a little bit where there's still some wide-eyed wonder, like a little kid, getting a toy for the first time and not really knowing how it works and, playing with it. That was me for those 8 weeks at MSP. Everything was like a new toy. I was like, whoa, shiny, and it's blinking. Oh, purple. What do I do with this? I want to play with that. And we, when we do breakouts, even with the Get Haunted people, I'm so fascinated with Rob when Rob does his EVP sessions. If you haven't been in a room with him when he does these, I always walk out with like my jaw on the floor. They are so amazing. I feel like he's a maestro with those EVP sessions. And I'm just like in awe of like the knowledge that all these people have that I've met, and I mean, including you. I'm so in awe and I'm very humbled, and I don't take for granted that the Get Haunted community have kind of welcomed me with open arms. I don't take it for granted. I'm thankful for it every day, and I'm just very humbled at how amazing you guys are in your work. And I love watching everybody work. I love seeing it in practice. So from an author standpoint, I just love watching it happen around me, That's why I'm really excited and scared shitless, for the Ditto House.
So what's interesting, we've talked about the equipment and stuff, and just the language. Obviously we got our own language. I mean, where else are you going to use the term orb in a sentence besides in the paranormal field? And but the thing is about the equipment, for the most part, except for like maybe the stuff that Rob Rakowski over there at Ghost Scare makes. Most of the stuff that we have was invented by how quick can you run upstairs?
Well, Kaylee, we actually talked about that before you came on, but I love telling this story, and you love making me tell the story. So we'll do this again. Um, yeah, it was the McClay mansion, and me and Bill's fiance Tanya were down in front of a bathroom that is known to have a lot of activity in, and the door is known to close by itself. In fact, it had closed on Rob the last time they were there, and it scared him. So I sat in front of his door with my phone in front of the door. So I was sitting probably about 10 feet, 15 feet away from the door, and my phone was on the floor. And about an hour went by, and me and Tanya were just talking, and the phone was saying nothing. The door wasn't moving. I was like, you know what? I'm done. So I stand up, I reach for my phone, and as I'm reaching for my phone, I say, well, fine. If you're not going to fucking close the door, I guess we're going to go somewhere else. That door slammed shut so violently. I almost thought about just abandoning my phone. I definitely abandoned Tanya. I mean, I left her. I mean, I ran like nobody's business. I ran like there was a werewolf after me. They tell me, I don't remember the staircase. I just know that I was at the bottom of the staircase, and then I was at the top of the staircase. But everybody watching said that they've never seen a person run up a staircase that fast. I mean, I was skipping steps at a time because it slammed right in the face immediately after I said, "Well, fine, then I guess we're leaving if you're not going to close the fucking door." Boom! In my face, and oh my god, it was bad. I mean, I've never experienced anything like that before, and it was within 1.5 to 2 seconds tops after the words came out of my mouth, right? So, like, you can rule coincidence out. There's no, I mean, it was just, I mean, yeah. So they won't let me live that down. Everybody who was there that night. Yeah, I don't remember like going up that staircase. Yeah, it was funny.
So my funniest staircase story is we were investigating the haunted B&B that I mentioned earlier that I put my friends at when they come down to my event. They have a witch's staircase. For the people who don't know what a witch's staircase is, it's I don't know how to describe it, like half a steps on each layer.
Yeah, so they're like camped, like they're not completely horizontal, right? They're offset, so they're like this.
Yeah. Right. And it kind of curves at the top too, right. Which makes it so. I realized that maneuvering this staircase in the dark with paranormal equipment was not going to be the most feasible. so I kind of cleared the staircase in 2 steps. But anyway, back to the equipment. So like Rob Rakowski over there at Ghost Gear, he does a good job with his equipment. But most of the equipment we have was not originally intended or made for paranormal research. So it was somebody smarter than me adapted it to the paranormal field. Like the SLS that everybody likes to use so much right now. Originally it was originally a Kinect's video game system. So it was a sucky video game system. But somebody smarter than me, or more observant than me anyway, noticed that while they were playing games live, that the camera was picking up people walking into the room when there was nobody walking into the room.
Interesting.
So somebody was like, "Hey, we can use that in paranormal research." So they developed it in paranormal research. I've actually had 2 of them. 2 of them in my. So the first one. So the thing is, like I mentioned earlier, and I mean I'm sure you can attest to this. Being new to the field and still learning the equipment. The key to any equipment is being trained on it properly and using it properly. As long as you use anything properly, it can be a good tool.
Right.
So that's the thing about SLS. So the version 1, for some reason, when it came out, it was so sensitive. So obviously the way the SLS works is, by theory, it picks up human shapes that we can't see.
Right.
So they look like stick figures.
Right. Yeah. No. I love that app. So it was the first app I ever touched. It was the only thing I used my very first night at MSP, before the night that I met Get Haunted. That was the only thing I had on me was that app, and yeah, I'd never seen anything like it before. In fact, that app plays a big part in my novel. All of the characters are running that app throughout the book, and so they pick things up on it and stuff like that.
So the first one was let me backtrack a little bit. So you say about using it on TV. So the thing is, everything's not like you see on TV. There are some good TV shows out there, like Taps when it was in production. I have no problem with Taps. For the most part, they did things the way it's supposed to be. And what people have to realize when it comes to like Taps and Ghost Adventures, which I won't speak as highly on, but any of those shows, what you have to realize, we see 40 minutes.
Right.
They're on location for 3 or 4 days.
Right.
So, you see what the producer wants you to see. But anyway, on the shows, for some reason, you always see people walking with SLS. The SLS is designed to be a stationary piece of equipment. Right. Obviously, if you're walking with it, it's going to cause false positives.
Right.
So anyway, the version 1 was so sensitive that it would pick up a pile of clothes as a stick figure. So I was never that big on the first one. Now I got the version 1.5 now. I don't know why it's 1.5 and not 2, but anyway, it's 1.5. And they built in like a delay in it, so there's as many false positives on it. But again, it's about using it properly. I've had some good experiences with it, and that's even as simple. You can even go as simple as like the cat boys. I'm not a big fan of a cat boy. First of all, it's a cat toy, so so that's the first thing. The second thing is, anything can make that thing grow. A breeze, somebody stepping on the ground. So that's not really something that. But anyway. But even I say that because even the cat ball can, when used right, can produce evidence. I did an investigation one time in Cave City, Kentucky, and it was a hotel, and so we got there. It's your standard hotel. The long dresser, the little dinette table, the 2 beds. So I decided just to set the cat balls on the dresser to see if I get anything. Yeah. First thing is, I figured that could at least tell me if the dresser's even, because if it's not even, the balls are gonna roll down. Yeah, or something took one of the cat balls and pushed it all the way down the length of the dresser. Just one of them. So since it was just one of them and it was all the way down, that's pretty good evidence. Right. So anyway, that's just my long spell. Laura said that she doesn't rely on SLS; she uses her own senses. I do that too, as we discussed earlier. But my thing is, and people can get mad at me when I say this or whatever they want to, I'll debate anybody all night about this stuff. I'm quite passionate about this, and I have a lot of experience to back up what I'm saying. But the thing is, if you're doing a residential investigation, that's a lot easier to come up to a homeowner and be like, this is what I captured in video. This is the EVP I captured. This is what I captured on the thermal camera. It's a lot easier to go to the homeowner with that than to go to the homeowner. This is what I feel is happening. If you have that extra. So that's why I use the scientific. Let's see what Damien says here. Why in the Ditto House with the decent? Why in the Ditto House with the decent?
Yeah, I was going to reply to this because I read it when he typed it. But he. So Damien, I do have a typewriter from the 1920s that I used purely in a photo shoot for an author photo for the back cover of one of my novels. and I have the typewriter in my writing office still. It's on top of my bookcase. I hadn't thought of it until you just wrote it. Since I'm driving to the Ditto house to when I write the book in July, maybe I'll throw it in the car with me and bring it in and type away on it a little bit to see if that old vintage clackety clack I don't know, does something. Or maybe I don't want to open that can of worms because there's enough going on in that house. Why should I add something new? I'm already gonna be fighting off ghost children for their fruity pebbles in the morning, I think.
So I think trigger objects, can be useful at times. I'm definitely not against it. So my way of communicating, my way of investigating, and my team's way of investigating, we consider ourselves a hybrid team because we use the old school stuff, and the new school technology. So the way we put it on our Facebook page is we combine the old school techniques with the new school technology. So anyway, right. So when we go in, we talk to the ghost just like I'm talking to you, the spirit. War about respect. We respect the house. We respect the property. We respect the living. So we just talk to. If for some reason that doesn't work, then we bring in, a trigger object. I found trigger objects work really good in like battlefields, especially like Civil War battlefields. I've had the privilege of.
The Ditto house is connected to a huge Civil War cemetery.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Let's just add that to the mix. Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. And it was probably used as a hospital. Almost everything that big was used as a hospital. So yeah.
I'm gonna get a refund on my plane ticket.
I've had the privilege of investigating a lot of Civil War battlefields, even ones that are kind of off limits to other people, because I'm also a member of the Sons of Confederate Veterans. So that gets me into a lot of the battlefields that other people can't get into. So the most interesting thing I ever had happened to me at a battlefield. I'm not even going to say it was paranormal, but I'm not going to say it's not paranormal either. It's one of those things that I can't really explain. Okay, so we're at the Perryville battlefield in Kentucky, which is the bloodiest battlefield in Kentucky. It was the last battle of Kentucky. It was the South's last chance to hold on to Kentucky. And what's interesting is the South, the Confederacy actually won the war, but they actually won the battle, but they sustained so many deaths they couldn't reinforce it, so they surrendered it.
No, wow.
But anyway, that's just a side note. I'm also a history buff. I think history and the paranormal go hand in hand.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So we're setting up, getting ready to investigate, and I have a brand new body camera. Police quality. I actually bought it for my friend who's a police officer, so you know what I'm talking about. One of the really good body cameras. Yep. And for some reason, it starts shooting flames out.
Like real flames?
Like blue flames.
Out of the body cam?
Out of the body cam.
That's some poltergeist stuff right there.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not going to say it is, but I'm not going to say it ain't. Something happened.
Was the body cam recording? Did it pick up the blue flames? Did you get it?
Yes, the body cam was still recording.
All right. So there's that too. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so let's talk about. We talked a little bit about. You said you have some equipment now. So what equipment do you like to use, Brian?
So the very what I've done four overnights now at this point. Other than MSP, I have a couple. I do have a couple cat balls. I have Bill from Get Haunted made me a REM pod that looks like an old book. It's a REM pod and a K2 meter built into one. So it looks like an old leather bound, old library. It's really, really, really cool. And I have I like the grid you splash the grid matrix up so you can see if a shadow figure goes by. I learned that at MSP. So I have one of those. Bill made me a ghost bell that is motion censored, not like EMF censored. So that's kind of fun. And I have my tracer lights. I did buy tracer light strip because that's my favorite. I love that thing.
So what's interesting about those tracer lights, so this paranormal investigator, this paranormal teams that make their own equipment. Well, I'm not one of those just because I'm not smart enough, I guess. But the one piece of equipment I have got good at making is the tracer lights. I can make those, and I do make those because if you try to go buy them, from Ghost Stop and all those, they run like $100, $150, $200. Right. I can make them and sell them for $50 and still make some money on them. So,
right.
So yeah,
that's good. So, yeah, and I have an actual REM pod, a disc normal one with the antenna and all that. I feel like I'm missing something, but yeah, and this is just stuff that, Oh, I have an EVP. I have a Rob from Get Haunted actually suggested a recorder for me. So I have a very specific recorder, a digital recorder that the same one that Rob likes to use sometimes. So for EVP stuff, but I've never used that. So I haven't used that one yet. That one's for you.
So any elemental is a little bit. Okay. Here's something I've never said very often. I've said it a few times. I would rather deal with a demonic entity than an elemental, because at least with a demonic entity, you have rules. You have guidelines. You know what to do. With elementals, really. There's no rules. You just have to kind of take it. So no, I can't explain that, Laura. I wish I could, but I can't. But this yeah. So I'm going to ask about what I call my Damien question here, Brian. How do you feel about Ouija boards?
I don't have an opinion. I don't think I know enough about them or their lore or to make a. I do know that I don't think I will ever put one in any of my novels, and or at least in the Get Haunted tale novels. I just don't. I'm not comfortable writing about them. I think. I also think they're very. So if you're asking me that question from an author standpoint, they're very cliche. They're considered very cliche in the horror genre. I probably won't have any Ouija boards for however many Get Haunted tale novels I write, just because they do come with an eye roll now in the horror novel community, where it's like, oh, so now this is the Ouija board, and there's this eye roll that you can hear. So if you're asking me as an author, no, I do not. Probably will never have a Ouija board in any of these books. If you're asking from a paranormal enthusiast, I'm intrigued by them, but I don't think I know enough about them to have an actual opinion.
So here's my opinion. Never did anybody ask, but this is my show, so I get to give my opinion. To me, a Ouija board is like any other tool. As long as you know what you're doing,
right?
It's okay. Like any other tool, though, if not used properly, it can open up gateways and portals. So it has to be used properly. So I'm going to give the short version of a long story that I've shared a couple of times before. My first introduction to a Ouija board. By the way, I call this my Damien question because if you don't know Brian, Damien's turned himself into a human Ouija board. His arms are literally a Ouija board.
No, so, I did not know that. I've never. Damien has been in the audience for a lot of the shows I've been on, and he's very, very communicative through them. But I've never met him nor seen pictures of him, so I don't really know anything about him.
He's from Scotland, so it's going to be a while
Yeah,
before
I
you
know
get
that.
me.
Yeah, I know he's from Scotland, and so I know about Damien, but I've never seen him or met him or talked to him
Yeah,
other than like comments on the shows I'm on.
I consider Damien my brother, even though I've never actually met him, but we've communicated a lot over the past 2 years. He's almost always on my show, and he's actually going to be my guest later on this year. So let me say this about Ouija boards before I go on to I was going to tell you about my first introduction to. So I actually have a guy in England that's actually making me a custom Ouija board that we're actually putting in a silent auction at my Paranormal Expo to help raise money for the expo. So, so my first introduction to my first introduction to a Ouija board. Most people just assume that I use Ouija boards because of my energy. It'd be a natural fit, and I messed with them a little bit, but my first introduction. And I'm going to make this short because I don't want to take up much more of anybody's time. But when I was 13 or 14, my my youth leaders, my youth pastors' adopted daughter was a little troublemaker. She was 15. She had just turned back into. She had just turned back into. She just got back into the area, and stuff. But she was into all that, and so for some reason, I got invited to her birthday party. I was the only guy invited to it. So, and like I said, even though she was a little troublemaker, she was hot. She basically looked like Alyssa Milano at 15. That's what she looked like.
Yeah.
So of course I went to the party, and she was into all that. She was into the Ouija boards and all that stuff. So that was my first introduction to it. So yeah, but to me, if it's used properly, there's no problem with it. Laura said, "What about crystal bars?" Crystal bars, same thing. If you use it properly, I have no problem with it. So we are about out of time. I do thank you for being my guest. Let everybody know they can pre-order the book now, right?
Yeah. So the book you can pre-order. These Walls Still Talk, which is the first book in the Get Haunted Tale series. You can pre-order it on and basically all the bookstores. So in paperback, ebook, and audiobook, right? And that's important because some people only listen to audiobooks. Some people only read ebooks. Some people only want the paperback. All of my novels are available in all three formats. They're available in every bookstore. And if you buy it from my website, which again is just myname.com, if you pre-order or buy it from my website, I do sign each copy individually. And the book release party, again, is June 21st at Missouri State Penitentiary with the entire Get Haunted crew, also with the entire MSP staff, also with all the characters who are in the novel are all coming in from all different parts of the country. We're going to have this scavenger hunt. We're going to have brand new merch that night. Of course, I'll be there. We're going to do breakout sessions, free roam, the whole nine. And you just put So that's the ticket link. If that link isn't clickable, you can go to Get Haunted site, or you can go to my website. Again, it's myname.com, and there's a link to buy tickets there. And like I said, when we started this, we were only allowed a certain number of tickets, and that came from Missouri State Penitentiary. We cannot go above what they have allotted us to sell. So once it's sold out, that's it. No amount of please, oh my God, I was going to buy one next week. Help me out. Could you get me in? The answer is no. Like, we have very strict we were given a very strict number by Missouri State Penitentiary that this is how many people are allowed to be here. This is how many tickets you can have. And once they're gone, they're gone. And I'm not saying that, to scare anybody or speed up ticket sales. It's literally one of those things where once they're gone, there's nothing any of us can do. This was part of our original agreement.
And I'm going to tell everybody they don't want to miss this event. Not only is it the book release, but just the Missouri Penitentiary is a place you want to investigate. It's on my bucket list location. It's usually quite expensive to investigate. So this is an opportunity to go with other people, so it's not as expensive. So don't miss the opportunity. So Brian, thank you for coming on the show. I would look forward to seeing you at the penitentiary, and
it's gonna be great. I look forward to seeing everybody. I mean, I'm so happy to see so many people that I've only seen their names come up on my news feed. It's there's so many people flying that are coming in for this. It's just gonna be. Yeah.
So I would like to talk to you sometime, and we can do this on camera about getting an autographed copy of the book to go into the silent auction, because the silent auction goes to charity.
Yeah,
All the money from.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that later. But thank you for being on the show. I'm going to play the exit video, and we are out of here. Everybody, thanks for joining. Next, remember, we are an hour earlier now, so hopefully next week we will actually be on Get Haunted at 5 Eastern, 6 Eastern, 5 Central. And but anyway, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Brian, thanks for being my guest, and we will see you.